Okay, so we're going to do some chicken stock and then we can freeze that afterwards.
Yeah.
So we've frozen the carcasses, so we don't throw them away after Sunday lunch. Put the carcasses in the freezer, label them up obviously,
Definitely,
date and everything. And then when we've got enough, 5 or 6, depending on your pan size probably, because what we don't want to do is have to go out and buy loads of new pans.
No, I mean, I've got big pans at home that I use for work, and I realise that not everybody has those, so you could... Yeah, I mean, what, you have a chicken once a month, twice, every 2 months, you'll save a few for a while, and the good thing about a freezer is that they'll stay
in there
fine in there for months. For months, yeah.
Yeah, so then got a bit of spare time on a night or a weekend, get your chicken carcasses out and make up some stock. Takes a while to cook, but then freeze it again, and then you've got your stock ready for maybe the next 6 months.
Once you've made a stock, if you can reduce it down, freeze it, you can put it into some ice cube trays. You've actually got your own little concentrated stock cube in the freezer.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take up much space in the freezer at all.
Right.
Right.
So get started.
So let's get started. First. Stock first, the basis of every good dish. So I've asked you to save some carcasses. Yep. We'll have a look at those, get them out the freezer, and see what sort of condition.
So how many are we going to do?
Well, let's get a box out and see what will go in the pan.
Okay.
Okay. What we're interested in is this, the bone. The skin, that can still contain fat. Now, fat is good flavour. You want that in the stock, but not too much. So what we'll do is we'll get some of these carcasses out, we'll have a look at them, might even take just a little bit extra skin off. That's 2 months worth of roast dinners in your hand there. So the fact that these bones are frozen, it doesn't really matter because we want to put this into, and we want to start it from cold. So the fact that they're frozen, as long as we can move them about, and they are coming off quite easily. And what I would say, if you can see all this, there's plenty of flesh still on this, and this can just all come off.
So we're going to take that off?
Yeah.
I'll put that in a bowl.
A top tip, whenever you're taking these carcasses off, these little bits under here, they're called the oysters. They are the nuggets, golden nuggets of a chicken. So once you've done your roast chicken, when no one's looking, just get your finger in here and get this. This is the best bit of chicken possible. I'm not joking.
How much are you taking off?
Well, just get any meat or skin. So something like this is perfect for a stock. You've got the bone, you've got a little bit of meat on there. That can go straight into the pan. And then if you just do the rest, any bits of skin, just pull off. Now, the good thing about this is that if there is a little bit of fat, and you can see there's some fat just on here, when this heats up in the liquid, it's going to rise to the top. So that will always be removable anyway.
What, none of that?
No, the wing's perfect because there's a little bit of meat on there, but that can come off. But this bit, there's no bone. It's just really just a little bit of flesh and skin. So we'll
so that's like the rib cage bit, is it?
Yeah, and just be careful of the rib cage because that's where the liver, that all the organs are, and they can be a little bit bitter for stocks.
All right.
So you just really want the bone, a bit of meat, and that's going to give you a great flavour. Right, the chicken's in. Pan. We've got the chicken in the pan. It's still frozen, and that's fine.
Right.
Don't worry about defrosting it. The fact that they're frozen is actually quite good because what you want to do, the important thing with the stock is start from cold.
Right.
Okay, don't put hot water in. It sort of makes everything a little bit cloudier. What we want is a gentle bringing up to the boil with some cold water, and then we should.
So patience.
Yes, love is a very important thing. Might sound silly, but love. You love your stock, it loves you back.
Okay.
Right, so that's full with water, cold water, and if you can see just at the top, there's already these little bits of fat coming to the surface. Fat will always rise, so that's easier to get off.
So we'll take that off later?
Yeah, get a good amount and then you can start skimming.
So they must be covered, and then you've got that about an inch from the top of the pan?
Yeah, I mean a tall pan is much better for making a stock. Just means you get a lot more liquid in.
Right.
And a shallow pan, if you had something like this making a stock, it's going to reduce quite quickly, and it could even burn a little bit as it catches. So nice tall pot is great. Let's stick this on. So this is coming up to the boil. It'll take a short while, but that's fine. A nice slow boil is really what we want. While we're doing that, what we've got are some vegetables that we can add in. So the three best vegetables to use: carrot, onion and celery. They are the ones that have great flavour. And like I say, you don't have to go and buy, especially to make a stock. Fresh vegetables will give you a good flavour. So what you need, think about this. This is going to be cooking for about 3 or 4 hours. If we had really tiny vegetables, they'd break up. And then again, you get a cloudy stock. So if we cut them, probably, if I do a starter, something like that sort of size.
Right.
And that's what we're looking for. Right, so if we move this over here, that can be coming up to the boil. And what we've got in this pan is just a little bit of oil, not too much. Remember, we're not wanting too much fat to go in, but a little bit of fat.
Any
vegetable oils, they've got a higher point so we can get some more colour on them. But if you've got olive oil, it's going to be fine. There's a small amount and it'll come out when we start skimming this anyway.
Okay.
Right.
So same size carrots?
Yeah. And if you've got the ends on, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as they're not too dirty. What I'll do, I'll start frying these. And we're just looking for some colour, so not too much. We're not trying to cook the celery, we're just getting a nice bit of colour. And once we've got the colour, we'll flip them over. Now this is an important part as well. The most common thing that people want to do when something's in a pan is stir it and move it around. Let it have the colour, get that colour, that's quite important. Celery is quite difficult because you can see it's a strange shape. It's not going to get colour easily on all the sides, but little bits of colour are really going to help.
So how do you want your onions?
Onions, let's quarter them. If you quarter it, so cutting through the root first.
So that way?
That's it, yeah.
And then the same again?
Yeah. Right, so if you look at this pan here, we've got some nice bits of colour starting on this celery here. So this is going to help give some flavour and colour to your stock. So this, I would say, is perfect. A really nice colour, not too dark. So that can go. Let's put it in a bowl just now because we'll skim this stock before we put all the veg in.
Right. So it's starting to bubble now, you can see the...
It is. And then can you see all that sort of frothy stuff at the top? We call that the scum. Scum's not a nice word and that's not nice stuff. So that's the fat. It's sort of the excess fat. So we just want to skim that. But we'll leave it a little while longer. Let's get a little bit more and then we can do it all in one. We don't have to keep looking at the... Oh, it's lovely. Lovely vegetables there. Right. Carrots. Again, let's just get the cut sides first because they're going to colour up really well. Easier to get the colour on there. So if you can see in the pan, we did put a little bit of oil in, but there's not much in there. So it's just a small amount, just trying to get that colour.
So we're not looking to cook them, are we? We're just looking to brown them.
And
so what, does that seal in the flavour, or what?
It doesn't necessarily seal in. What it's doing, all of these little bits of brown are caramelised vegetables.
Right.
So it just gives it another depth to the flavour of the stock. So you could put these in raw. It will still work. If you haven't got the time to do that, you could just put them in raw. You're still getting flavour in there, but it's just going to give you another little bit of flavour. These are a good colour. We can get these out and we'll go for the final ones, the onions. Right, so the onions, they've got their skin on. We'll get them in. So that colour is what you're looking for. Any darker than that and it starts to get a little bit bitter. What we're going to do is we want to pour the cold water into it. Now what it does is it shocks that fat even more to rise to the top. So just pouring it a little bit in, around. And it'll just get those little bits of fat that are attached to the bones, to the extra bits of skin that are in there. Just helps to lift them up. Fat will always float to the top. Once we've done that, what we can do is skim all of that off. This whole technique is called, it's a French term, it's called dépouiller. And it's what they do is they put the cold water in, they skim the stock off, and then you've got your clear stock underneath. So only the bits of foam, and a ladle's really important for this. If you just get a spoon in, you're not really getting all of that foam. So just putting the ladle in, what it does, it just gently moves everything in the pan, because when this has come up to the boil and it's simmering for the 3 to 4 hours, we don't want to move these vegetables. Moving the vegetables too much and it'll get a cloudy stock. Now this hasn't come up to the boil yet, but you can start skimming as soon as you get a good amount. And the important thing is, once it comes up to the boil, you need to be there. You can't just let it boil and boil and boil. So this has come up to the boil, and this is as far as we want to get it. Any hotter than this and it'll start breaking up as it clatters about. So
we've got a lot more of that scum now, Philip.
Definitely.
So do we have to?
Let's get rid of it. So we'll use our
cold water again, right?
Cold water in.
Bring all the fat to the top, yeah?
Yeah. It also cools it down. So if it's starting to get a bit violent and starting to bubble a lot, a bit of cold water just cools it down. So this is it. We've turned it down to a nice low temperature. You can see the odd bubble, and again, this is as exciting as it wants to be, really. So you see some steam coming up, but basically that's all, the odd bubble, and it just shows that the flavour's slowly being put through.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll get our vegetables in and put them around. If you see any gaps, they can go in there. Word with the carrots, if you've got too many carrots, then it can become quite sweet.
Sweet.
Again, with the onions, it can be quite sweet. So you're wanting flavour, but you're not making a vegetable stock. This is a chicken, so you want the chicken to take priority. What we can also do is put these mushrooms in, and these will absorb little bits of fat. So when the mushrooms go in, these little bits of fat, they'll sit on top, and then they'll just slowly absorb everything in. So aromatics wise, we've got some parsley. Now we're just interested in the stalks. These are full of flavour, so the stalks go in. Oh. With the time, you can also take the leaves off if you want. I'm just going to put these in though. That should just start imparting some really nice flavour in there. These are fresh bay leaves, I believe, from your friend's garden. But we can just use dried if you want to, but these will give it a really nice flavour. So just stick them in around. So these mushrooms just going to stick on the top. Now, we say that you want everything to be covered in liquid, but some of this is going to have to float, so we're just going to have to make do with that. And then what I've got in the bottom here is just a few little peppercorns, and they're just going to help flavour the stock. What I'm not going to put in is any salt. If we put salt in now, later on we're going to reduce this down, and it's going to get saltier and saltier as you reduce it. So try not to put salt in. However, if you're using carcasses from chickens that have been roasted, they will have a bit of salt in, so you just be aware that you've got salt in there. And then basically, that is it.
Just leave it now. That's
it. It just wants to sit there, and it does its thing. You can come and have a look. You can see there's little bits of foam just around, depending on how stressful you are. If you want to calm down, you can come and put them and then take them off and just give it nice and clear. But what you'll see, and if you can just look down there, you can see, not all the way down the pan, because obviously everything's in there, but you can see that's fairly clear, and that should just stay nice and clear at this point. So we've got it on a low heat at this point, so it's just a nice gentle simmer. The odd bubble coming up every now and then. So
we're going to leave that uncovered and just leave it. We don't need to stir it, move it, touch it for...
Just let it do its thing, and it takes about 3 to 4 hours.
3 to 4 hours?
Yeah, that's the hard work done. It's just now the nice smell that will stay in the kitchen all day. We've got some veg left over.
Yep.
Can't really fit that in the pan. That's fine. What we can do is we've got a bag here. We'll just put that in. Waste not, want not. So let's put that in there. So stick it all in. And then just get as much air out as possible. And then that can be just labelled up. And then that's saving even more time next time you make some stock.
Right, and then put that in the freezer, yeah?
Yeah, and what is important is you try and just keep as much air as possible, and you can see it doesn't take up much space. So now what we need to do is just strain it. So we've got
Right.
a conical sieve, any sieve will do.
Okay.
This is a fine mesh one and it just gets any bits of sediment out of it. And then basically we'll get this over. This is a slightly dangerous bit because you're dealing with some hot liquid, but just be very careful and in it goes.
So it's a little bit about confidence, isn't it? But obviously, if you've got a wider sieve, that's going to make that better as well, isn't it?
It is.
So you're going to try and get all of that out there.
We definitely won't get it all in.
No.
So let's just get another pan. Move that to one side and we'll get this one.
So there seems to be a bit of a difference in clarity between the two.
Well, this is the stuff that we poured first of all. This is from the top of the pan. So this is the one that we've looked after, we've skimmed the fat off, and this will be a lot clearer. This I would call B grade stock.
Right.
Nothing wrong with it, lovely flavour, but it's a bit cloudier. So we talked earlier about, you know, if you're going to use it for something.
Depending on what you're going to use it for,
exactly. But both of them, what we're going to do is reduce them down until we can get them flavoured enough and strong enough, then we can freeze them ready to use for something else.
Okay.
Put this out the way. And then purely get them on.
So I'm going to get both of them on.
We talked about not bringing too much heat to it while we're making the stock, but now we've got all of the bones and the vegetables out, we can actually turn the heat up.
That looks like bubbling fat.
Well, that's just the rest of the fat left in there, so what we can now do is just do a final skim, just these little bits of fat off.
But you're happy for it to be bubbling vigorously like that?
Yeah, you want to reduce it down now. You can do it very slowly and it will keep its clarity, it won't look very cloudy. But it'll take a lot longer.
Right.
So B grade stock we can reduce down. We've got some good flavour in there. That's ready to go. For the A grade first class stock, a gentle reduction. And don't forget, we are going to freeze these. But if you didn't want to freeze them, you could use them straight away. These are now ready to go. What we want to do is now concentrate them so that we can freeze them and use them over the next few months. Alright, so what we've got now are stock from the same pan. We've reduced this one a little bit, but not much, but we've really reduced this one down. And this is what we're going to use, put it into a jug and we can freeze this. So we'll just pour it in. Think about how much was in. There's not very much in now, so it's really all of the flavour there. The water's evaporated, it's left all of the flavour. And then what we do, just get a nice cube tray. And then once this is all poured in, let it cool just a little bit. It won't take long to cool, it'll take 10 minutes or so, and then we can get this into, I'm not going to get all of them, but...
And we'll put that in a freezer for a few hours, till it's solid, till they're frozen, and then put them in bags or...
Yeah, then you can crack them out of the ice tray, put them into a bag, label it up.
We could put them in a tub even. Or,
yeah, whatever you can. I mean,
bags use up less space, of course, don't they?
With a chest freezer, the great thing is if you've got these little cubed plastic containers, they can go in there and they don't take up too much space.
Yeah, okay.
And then you know how much flavour's in there, you've tasted it, you know how much liquid to add to it as well. But these will be easily rehydrated just with some water. So they're cooling down, ready to go in the freezer. This is the stuff that we could use now. So once the stock is done, once we've decanted it separated it from the bones and vegetables, it's ready to use. You've tasted this one, it's fairly weak, but that means we can add more flavour to it if we need to. And
reduce it as part of whatever it is that we're going to do as well?
Definitely. What you do with the stock is really now up to you. So you've got the basic flavour, and the world's your oyster.